Norwich Confidential with your hosts, Dr. Ben Hong, Bonnie Hong, and Mr. Bob Farwell.
Good evening, and I'm Ben Hong.
And I'm Bonnie Hong, and welcome to Norwich Confidential.
And tonight we have
We're continuing our political
whole group of people that
Right.
we want to introduce to you in case that you may not have heard of them yet.
Our
But these are a very interesting group.
Right. These are our candidates for local election. The election is on November 3rd. And as you know, we hope that we have been able to begin to make sure that you are educated, informed voters for November 3rd. It is not just the candidates that you have to be informed about. It is also the 18 referendum questions.
Or I need to be informed myself.
Yes, we all need to be informed. So this evening we are interviewing the Republican candidates for City Council.
That's very good.
Yes.
So we have 4 of them, but I think Peter Nystrom is coming in late.
Right.
And I'm so glad that they all can make it, and that's really nice. And it allows us to kind of know you and know exactly who you are and why you want to serve and what you have as a personal interest in serving for the city of Norwich. And of course, it's for the interest of all of us who lives in Norwich also. So welcome. And,
Thank you.
Let's get started.
We can get you started right away.
Let's start with, if you would please introduce yourself, and we only have one incumbent, so if you would let us know who you are and why you're running.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Philbrick, and I'm a candidate for City Council on the Republican slate. Since moving to Norwich in 2004, I have been a very active and vocal participant in the City Council arena as a taxpayer and voter. I made the decision to run for City Council because we're long past the time for change. People say that talk is cheap. It is not cheap. It's extremely expensive. I feel that I can bring a lot to the table. I am outspoken, critical, ask the difficult questions. I'm not beholden to anyone. So I ask for your support on Election Day. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. And our next Republican candidate?
My name is Stacy Gould. I'm a lifelong resident of Norwich, and I decided to get into the political arena with the Republican Party because I was disappointed in the direction that Norwich is going, and I thought by getting involved we can lower taxes, bring business to Norwich, create jobs, and make it a more enjoyable city to live in.
Thank you, Joanne. Our next candidate.
Hi, my name is Gerald Martin. Some people even know me as Jerry. I'm running for office because I want to make things better in my community. I've lived here for 15 years. I could live just about any place I want, but I really love Norwich because I like to fish. I enjoy serving on boards and commissions, and I get to meet a lot of people that I normally wouldn't cross paths with, and come to know Norwich as all the hidden jewels like Indian Leap and Facturo's Bakery and, you know, La Stella's, Jack's, you know, the harbor, year-round stripers. It's a great place to be. It's multicultural. You know, I can hear French being spoken in Taftville. I also can hear it in the shop right in the line behind some of my new Haitian neighbors. So I enjoy living here in Norwich, and I really want to change things for the better, but I don't want to come in there and reinvent the wheel. You know, I want to pick out a few things that I can do in one term, because that's all I want is one term. And I want to close in on some ideas that I can see through, some projects, and try to make things better. I want to champion a school. I took a tour at Veterans Memorial School, and I want to work hard for them. They're struggling over there. There's 6 children for every device over there. I'd like to see what I can do to get them some more media to work, and, you know, so they're not disadvantaged like the kids in East Lyme with probably 1-to-1 ratio, and, you know, our kids are 6-to-1. They're like behind the 8 ball from K through 5, and further down the road it's only going to get worse. So I'm just trying to make things better, that's all.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
And our incumbent.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Bill Nash, and I'm the incumbent on the panel tonight, and I'm sitting here with my teammates. And I chose to run for the City Council shortly after retiring from the police department. when I brought a business to the downtown and I saw the difficulties that a business owner has. And I wanted to serve. I wanted to continue serving. Norwich has been a terrific city to me in my career in the police department, and I wanted to give something back, and I wanted to continue serving my community. I'm running again to be reelected because I feel that there's a lot of projects that I've been trying to champion, trying to push, and have not been able to finish. When I first came on, I was very naive, thinking I can do this in 2 years, and I realized quickly that this is a process. Norwich is in rough shape. We are really in a bad shape, and I don't believe it's irreversible. I believe it's something we can reverse. However, we didn't get in this position in 2 years. We got here since I started working on the police department back in 1985. The old-timers were telling me how Norwich was not what it used to be, and it was slowly deteriorating. And I've had I witnessed it firsthand. And I'm doing everything I can on the council to roll back taxes, to support our school systems, our police departments, our fire departments, protect our heritage that the community has. Jerry mentioned so many great places, and I just want to have a voice in trying to protect that and make the best decisions for all of Norwich.
Thank you. I think that there's a number of questions that come to mind very quickly as I listened. First, with Joanne, what is your background? Because you said, you've moved here recently, you've been involved and you are political, but you didn't say anything about what your background is.
Okay, I was born and raised in Manchester, Connecticut. My mother's family, the Caseys and the Cummings, have long history in Norwich. The family homestead is at 77 West Town Street. I moved to Martha's Vineyard in the mid-'70s and stayed there for about 30 years. When I retired, I wanted to come back to Connecticut to be with family, and I had always loved the history and architecture of Norwich. So I went online and I found my house. I bought a beautiful, I think it's beautiful, 1734 salt box on the Norwich Town Green, and basically made a rash decision to just sell my house and move here. I didn't do a lot of research. And it was quite a significant learning curve when I moved here, coming from the island where there were no fast food restaurants and all that kind of stuff, to an area where it was a cultural eye-opening experience. Yes, adjustment. My background as far as work, always worked. I've done everything from being a taxi driver to an EMT to a commercial lending officer. And I always like to say that antiques, I love antiques, but politics are my passion. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, you're talking about helping the city go in a new direction. Stacy, I'm sorry. You talked about having the city go in a new direction. What is your vision of that direction?
Well, I'd love to see the arts come back, but we have to maintain the residents that are here. We have to do something for the businesses here, and by doing that, we have to lower the taxes. We have to support our school system. We have to support our fire departments, our police departments. We need all of those services, but there can't keep being a ballooning cost to the taxpayers without finding solutions to accountability, solutions to how we're buying things for the city of Norwich.
Like what? Like what kind of, because you can't obviously lower taxes and help put the police department's staffing back to where it should be, or, continue to improve our school system and our school budget when 40% of that budget is from grants. So how do you lower taxes and achieve what you're talking about?
Well, you would lower taxes, you make Norwich more affordable. People will be interested in coming in. More people paying tax versus less people paying tax is simple mathematics.
Yes, but the other part of simple mathematics is if you lower taxes, you have to cut services.
Not necessarily.
How
I think
would
if you hold services, explain to people, explain to the agencies, listen, we're going to have to hold your budgets tight for a little while.
Well, they have been. I mean,
Well,
I'm
then
sure
we're going to
you're
have to
aware.
We're going to have to continue to do that, but we can't keep saying to the taxpayer, you have to tighten your belt.
Well, that's not going to be lowering taxes. If you maintain everything the way it is, the taxes aren't going to be lowered. You're not going to lower my 41 mill rate.
Well, we have to lower the 41 mill rate.
And that's what I'm asking you. How do you do that and still maintain the services that you're talking about? Jerry, do you have do you want to maybe address that
So
question?
you want me to jump in front of that
Please,
train?
yeah.
Please, okay.
If you want, we can throw it to the
Sure,
incumbent.
I'll take it.
Okay, go
I'll
ahead.
take a little
Thank
stab
you.
at it.
Okay.
Not a problem. Got to grow the grand list, plain and simple. You know, you got to make people want to come to Norwich.
Right.
The problems that we're facing right now is anybody does their research, because everything's digital now, they go on Zillow or whatever site, they see what the schools are rated at, they see the services in the town, and when our schools are number 2s and number 3s, and NFA is a 4, and Norwich Tech is a 7, go Tech schools, you know, it's a harder sell, you know, as opposed to a community like East Lyme where the schools are rated much higher, and the
Which is my
education is
point.
there.
You can't cut our education budget any more than it is. I mean, that's
I never made
almost-
that statement, I
No,
was
I
gonna
know.
cut it.
I know, because it's really frightening that 40% of that budget already is made up of grants. It's not even out of our tax dollars.
That's sad.
And it is. And to improve our schools, I think you're absolutely right. That's going to be the biggest draw for a business to come into the community. If you have a good school, strong school system, that does draw business here. People aren't afraid to bring their kids in, to have their kids raised in the community because they can be assured they're going to have a great education. So I can understand that, but it still doesn't answer the question of,
How I'm gonna,
yeah.
I've been working since the very first time I got elected, and hopefully with the next city manager coming in, if I have the opportunity to serve again, I will continue pushing my agenda, which is to consolidate facilities within our city. That saves money right off the list there. Get some of these buildings back on the tax roll versus the city covering the tax, paying the lights, paying the fuel, that kind of stuff. Consolidate departments within our city. There are some departments that are redundant, some areas of like payroll, some of those areas there. Little things that are starting to come around now, which is the biweekly paychecks or the paperless pay stubs that you get online versus it saves money. And then not only consolidating the departments, but consolidating within departments. All right, these are ways that we can save money. Now, will it be money that we'll see immediately? No, some of this takes time to get to fruition, but eventually this could equal into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention some buildings back on payroll where taxes are coming in. Not only that, we need zero-based financing, or someone explained to me, don't use zero-based because I'm not a finance guy, but needs-based financing. Budgeting. When we go budget, instead of giving people just, taking from column A to put in column B because that's next year's budget, because that's what we've done, we shouldn't be doing that anymore. Last budget, I recommended a $200,000 cut in the police overtime budget. Was that bad? No, I didn't think it was, because in the worst case scenario, if the police department have a major issue where they need to have an overtime and dip into that budget, they could come back to the city council and say, hey, we need some extra money. Public Works did it when the snow hit us.
Right.
So there's ways that, because there are some departments, not many, but there are some departments that give us money back at the end of the year. So this is ways we can save money for our taxpayers.
Well, let me ask you a question, because as a group, you seem to be on one major issue that seems to be something that we really need to address, and that is how we can lower taxes and yet at the same time maintain the expenses that we currently have. Now, Bill, you've been in this council for some time.
Yes.
Do you see any waste at all that's happening to us? Or from what Bonnie's telling me, it looks like that we're down to bare bones for every service.
No, we're not, and that's why I voted no against the budget,
All right.
because we didn't do enough. We didn't work on consolidating our facilities, consolidating departments, consolidating within departments. I felt the council did not do more. I made proposals, those proposals obviously didn't pass. But there were more I've been asking since the first time. The new acting city manager has taken the lead on this now, and he's starting to do a lot of the consolidating of agencies. He's working some different things. Some of it, obviously, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, is contractual. There's unions involved, and there's job descriptions, and these kind of things that need to be looked at as we move forward. Again, there's not a silver bullet that's going to turn this all around, but there was an old saying I learned from a former business partner: watch the pennies and the dollars save themselves. That's what I'm trying to do. Some people say, Nash, this is not enough. No, it is. You got to give it time.
Now, when you mention consolidation, I look at it as a corporate point of view. Obviously, when corporations buy another corporations and they consolidate, and the first thing that happens is that a lot of people lose the job. And do you have any consideration that there might be some people that will be losing jobs from the city?
I believe through retirement and some maybe, I don't want to say golden handshakes, but there's some people that are close that could retire now that we could offer. You know, maybe they got to wait till they're 55. Well, maybe we see if they'll leave now, give them their pension. This way, when we hire new, maybe we don't hire that position at all. Maybe it's something that we can do without and restructure other job descriptions that may cover that area. Again, these are union issues and contract issues that.
Have you made your proposals public? I mean, have they been published? Would you be specific about some of them?
I could get into it. I mean, I don't have that in front of me, the stuff I've worked on.
Yeah.
But there are many things. The Norwich Health, Youth and Family Services that are literally across the street from the City Hall. We have 2 floors at City Hall that are not even used.
Right.
They're skeletons. You can do whatever you want. So why are they over there when we can move them to City Hall? Recreation Department. I know I get a lot of guff from the recreation individual there, that program director, because of the building, but that building could be sold to NFA, could be utilized by their baseball, soccer facilities up there, and we could put them, I don't recommend recreation going into the senior center because I don't think it's the place for it, but many cities have it in their city hall. And it saves money. Right now, we have 2 people up there that do run programs, and I'm not taking, they're tremendous people, but we're heating and providing electricity and covering the cost for 2 people. And I love those people. They're great employees of our city, but they could be somewhere else doing the job, and we can get that building on the payroll.
Now, Bill, let me ask you this, because you do have good ideas. On the other hand, also, you're looking at maybe the city council will all agree with you and do one thing.
That's why I'm looking for a team,
But
like-minded people.
Have you had,
and that is a good idea, that you will have your own team and probably get us to move forward. But don't you think that you're micromanaging a lot of things that the city manager ought to be doing, and that might be part of his performance evaluation if he is able to do that without having the entire council telling him what to do, like what you just said?
I can't micromanage. I have no idea how to run a city. I simply legislate for the citizens of Norwich with making the best decisions I can based on all the information that we can obtain as council persons. We all look at it differently. I do reach across the aisle, try to get support from the fellow council persons.
and you haven't had?
I have some, yeah, but there are times I kind of run into.
It's one of the consolidation that you're talking about also that we heard from here was the Board of Education, because they're talking about consolidating all the schools into one basically facility.
I come from New Jersey. We have 2 elementary schools, 2 junior highs, and a high school. Now it's 2 high schools, and there's 88,000 people living in there. When I came to Norwich, and I became a DARE officer, and it was the greatest job I've ever had in my life.
A what?
A DARE officer, Drug Abuse
a DARE
Resistance
officer.
Education
So you were in the
officer.
schools.
I was in the schools,
Right.
and we have the most amazing teachers and board of ed people. But 9 elementary schools, I was like, how can you pay for 9 elementary schools when, everyone got upset because we're going to go to a super middle school? I mean, I came from that kind of a system. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Well, I think the Regional 9 elementary school was made because I assume that students, when at lunchtime, walk to school.
We all walk to school.
And so they really need their own neighborhood schools.
Community schools are great when you can afford them. If you can't afford them,
But I think nobody, no kids now walk to school.
No.
So whether you take a bus to the next block or to the next district is not going to take you that long. So we have Peter Nystrom here tonight.
Yes, okay, and I'll come back, Bill, because I
Yes.
think that I want to pursue that a little bit more.
Certainly.
We have another introduction. Our other candidate for City Council, would you like to introduce yourself?
Past mayor of the city.
Yes,
It's Pete Nystrom, very happy to be here. Got here as soon as I could from work.
And why, well, they've introduced themselves and said a little bit about why they're running.
Why they're running? I've been invested in the city of Norwich all my life. I first ran for city council back in 1979, believe it or not. Was elected. I've served 27 years in public office. most recently as the prior mayor for 4 years, 2009 to 2013. And I just, well, for me, it's a personal calling to try to make a difference and make our city better and more affordable to live in.
So of all the people right here, and I think you probably know more about the in and outs of the city government, one the two of you, and of course Bonnie probably can be our historian. But Peter, your
I am
theme,
that old.
your Republican theme this year is the lower taxes, and
It's
from
not just
Bill-
lower taxes, it's address the overspending that's going on
and
in the city.
that's what I was just talking about, what Bill Ness was explaining to us. So.
Right.
We just went through revaluation, and during that time, our grand list went down. The value of grand list went down. The value of people's homes went down. Equity lost by people who own property here in the city of Norwich. When that happens, what a business would do is tighten down, spend less, so that it could recover. But the city hasn't done that. In the last 2 years, we saw a very large mill increase during the revaluation year, 2014. And that hit businesses in particular very hard when you look at the personal property tax that's paid. People want to know why the city continues to spend at the level it does when they've had to live with less as families, as businesses. And those are valuable questions, and we're here to answer those questions because we can do better.
Well, I'm going to tell you that, as a citizen of Norwich, I've been here for, over 50 years or something like that. And this year, of course, we get our estimate tax for our property tax in Norwich. And this first time I get a sticker shock. And I think all of you probably may have felt the same thing. So, as a party, there is an agenda that you all want to do and work on to achieve something that you feel that this is for the best interest of Norwich. Is that correct?
Yes.
That,
Absolutely, and I'd
Let's-
invite my fellow candidates to jump in.
Right.
Yes.
And again, I think that, again, to address the real issue, yes, it's great to be able to lower the taxes. It would make everybody happy. But it's not going to make everyone happy if the austerity that results is a detriment to the community. And we've seen it happen in other communities. So I think that one of the things, that's why I'm asking, what kinds specifically, like Bill, I think your statements were, yes, I think those are great ways of actually reducing costs, whether it happens very quickly or continues to happen over the long term. What are some other areas that you would want to look at to cut cost?
Well, if I may, I'll take a different approach. And again, I consider myself a realist. I'm a senior citizen. I live on a fixed income. I understand that perhaps the majority of the citizens of Norwich are senior citizens living on fixed incomes. I am not opposed to making the cuts that need to be made.
Which cuts? What do you, be specific, please.
Personnel,
Where?
we need to take a hard look. One of my pet peeves is if you look in everybody's line item in the budget, there's a line item called building and grounds maintenance. And for every single department in the city of Norwich, it's at least $25,000 or $30,000. I want to know what they spend their money on. Do any of us spend $25,000 a year on home maintenance and grounds? That's a lot of money. That's an incredible amount of money. Consolidation is the key. In a perfect world, you would do it through attrition. I'm not in favor of golden handshakes. We all have to. We all have
be
to.
one area.
Yep. We all
So-
have to give. I'm dramatically opposed to $250,000 for new floors in the city hall when the police officers don't have computers in their cars. Our priorities priorities seem to be slightly askew, in my opinion.
Okay. Stacy?
Well, if you grow the grand list by attracting new businesses, maybe we're not advertising Norwich in the right way. We seem to, everything you read about Norwich in the newspaper is negative. What about the positive things? Why isn't someone every week or every month talking about what's the changes we're making in our school system? Talking about every week or every month, okay, It's the fall. Let's go to the park. We're going fishing. We're going to do this. We have this. We have all Slater Museum. We have all kinds of things. Go to take a walk on Indian Lake. Come apple picking. We have all of these things. Can we offer people, excuse me, who live out of town? Let them come and see what's going on in Norwich in a positive light.
Yeah. Jerry, you own a business.
I did for 11 years, but not here. I was in Colchester for 11 years, my business.
Did you ever have your business in Norwich?
On paper, but I closed it.
So what did you experience while you were in Colchester? What's the positive experience that you have that you can
Positive
bring over
experience?
to
As a
Norwich?
business person.
Yes.
I belong to the Colchester Business Association. I joined that so I can network with other businnesmen and feed off.
I mean, the city. How did the city treat
city-
you as a business?
The city was tough. The reason why is because it was built on older families. You know, there was an old lineage. It's an old Yankee town, Colchester. The Standishes. I lived on Standish Road, and I used to say, "Hey, my relatives got here in 1632." I said, "We're not so new," you know. And we'd chuckle and we'd smile. I like the small community. I was born and raised in Hartford, Frog Hollow.
Right.
I lived in a 6-family apartment all my life, so to move to Colchester and have a whole acre of land with a 400-foot stone wall with nice...
But Stacy talked about, being able to expand the grand list
Right.
and bringing in businesses. So what we're asking is, as a business owner, what do you see the advantages if business was good in Colchester, you didn't actually move your business here? Is
No,
there a difference? Is there a
Well,
difference for you?
I work and I get a paycheck every week. It's a big difference. When I
Yeah.
had my business, that didn't always happen.
Okay. But you've had a business in
And I
town.
actually had a business in Colchester as well.
Okay.
When I
Yes.
first
Wow.
retired
So
from the police.
how do you see the city treating a business owner here?
My personal experience when I brought my business to Norwich was that other than the really bringing the building up, because I opened a downtown business, which made it very difficult, and I can understand where some of the roadblocks come from people trying to locate the downtown businesses.
Those roadblocks are really...
They're hard, and we faced them. We had zoning issues, we had fire code issues, we had building code issues.
But you know that stops the businesses
Yes.
from coming in. So do you, as a business, somebody that's experienced that, do you have any solutions to
Well-
that so we can grow the grand list?
The original plan, when Peter was the mayor, we had put together the little package there to try to stimulate and attract businesses to the downtown area. It didn't pan out. I'll
And
sit
it
here.
didn't address those issues.
It didn't address the issues. So some of the things we need to do with the downtown is we have to work with the zoning enforcement or the codes that we have presently, because our buildings are of the age that they're not going to meet present day building codes and fire codes. And some of the things I think we personally need to do, and again, I don't know all the codes. I only know the codes that I faced, like putting a sprinkler system in, putting metal beams in instead of the wooden beams. These are things that if my former business partner wasn't in a position financially to help cover those costs, I probably would have not opened a business in Norwich. So these are some of the things we have to look at. How do we waive them? Do we make exceptions for certain businesses that want to come? If it's a restaurant, obviously fire suppression is important, but if it's a shoe store, do we really need a fire suppression system on a shoe store or a tailor? So these are things I think we need to get in and look at. And I won't lie, that's far beyond my educational level. We talk a lot about education. I'm just a regular person. I have a high school degree, a high school diploma with some few college credits. So I'm not an engineer. So,
Right.
but I do know that there are codes that there are people that we need to reach out to and say, listen, the person wants to bring a tailor shop here. What can we do to get them? Because they're not going to have an ADA bathroom. They're not going to have. It just can't for cost purposes.
Yeah, well, there's a certain a guideline that we have to follow also, but the issue is, are we a business-friendly city? And are we telling the people that, like, let's work together to do this so that you can maintain your business? Or we could just say, hey, listen, you can just go out of town if you want to.
I found Norwich friendly, business friendly. I had no problems with the fire inspector when they came down. Now, I wasn't a council person, so I want to make sure everyone knows that I wasn't getting special treatment. Okay, I had left the city of Norwich after retiring, opened a business in Colchester, came to Norwich. They answered all my questions. The only thing that caught us by surprise when we went to get our OCO was that we didn't pay the sewer hookup fee, which nobody talked to us about. And I literally had only that much money left in the bank. NPU worked with us, gave us a payment plan, and we were able to cover
And you
that.
found them very friendly.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
work-
I really,
work,
other than
around
just
with.
the money that we
with
had
you.
to spend to bring the
Right.
building to code.
Yes,
If
of
that's what you're considering unfriendly, then yes.
Well, I think the safety of the community
Of
needs
course.
to be a priority
Absolutely.
also.
Did you own the
90% of that
building?
is state building code.
Right.
It's not
Did you
local.
own the building?
My business partner did, yes.
Okay, so, okay.
Now, Peter, you do have a good idea on taxes as far as the city of Norwich is concerned, because you've been past president and, of course, council mayor, and of course you also know exactly how the ins and outs of the city is going through. So your theme, or at least your priority in this election run, is to lower down taxes. And what we're trying to say also is that, well, is it possible to lower down taxes and maintain what we have right now as far as services, or even improve it without cutting through what we are already, from what I know,
You have to really
short.
look at what services should be maintained in the city, and maybe there are some services that no longer can we afford.
Like
So-
what services?
For
can't we
example,
afford?
we have probably the best social service office in the state, and I fought to
Yes.
keep them empowered by state statute. I was in Hartford in the State General Assembly when the state abolished general assistance, which was the general obligation that every town was responsible for their own people in need. That law was abolished, and the state took over those operations. Bev Goulet, our director at the time, and Leanne and everybody else there, they wanted to still be able to function here, because it was believed that if you didn't have someone's eyes and ears on the ground at the local level, that the state probably wasn't going to respond to the needs. I mean, you hear about Department of Corrections dropping people here, targeting the city of Norwich because of our lower rents. That happens, it's real. Well, who's there at the local level to meet that and to address those issues? Same thing with the building inspection. If you don't have a building code enforcement officer, if he doesn't have or she doesn't have the resources, how do you maintain the housing stock? Make sure people are living in safe accommodations, make sure that there aren't illegal electrical hookups being created, and we've all experienced that here in the city of Norwich. It's about singling out all of the departments and recognizing whether or not we can afford to continue to have them. I didn't mean to pick on a social service office, but the fact is they're so successful at what they do. It's a catch-22.
Yes.
They're drawing more people in need to the city of Norwich who aren't residents of the city of Norwich, because there are services here that people can look to when they're first getting back on their feet, whether they're poor, whether there's someone who's in a poor relationship, where the mother and the child has to get out, and they need shelter, and they need resources. This city is a beacon of light in many ways like that, and that's not a bad thing. That's a
Well,
good thing.
yeah, it
But
goes back
how
to
many
the
times
1950s
are we
and the
supposed to
1960s
reach out
also. Yes.
and be that resource?
Again, we need to balance exactly
It is a
what
balance.
we can afford
And it means asking hard
what we mean as a
questions.
community.
It really does.
And what we mean as a civilized
My view
city.
is every department is brought in at the table, and they are told, the department heads are told, we must find savings. I think it starts with this year's budget, that we're already almost halfway through. We don't wait till the next budget cycle. I mean, families aren't waiting. They're cutting back or going without. Businesses aren't doing what they shouldn't be doing, spending what they don't have. The city has to be run as a real business. It isn't at this time.
Well,
It's just not.
it goes back, and again, like I said, in the 1950s or 60s, when we always seem to state that Norwich State patients are being dumped into the town and the city of
Yeah.
Norwich, and now our social services are taking them in, putting them in homes and so on, and now we're left with really a lot of
But there's also
people
another
there.
point, because they're not just people that are being dumped. As an administrator for a medical practice, I can tell you that, when you talk about seniors, the majority of those seniors you talk about are living on less than $400 a month. I know. Dr. Hong has had to go into
Right.
their homes because there's no one left.
Right.
No one will do a house call. You can't,
Right.
when I needed somebody to actually help me connect so that person, that senior, was not eating cat food, it was the Norwich Social Services that put me in,
True.
even for those patients that live outside of Norwich. I know, you talk about you're going to cut services. I think it's essential that we know exactly what services you're looking at. I think consolidating certain things, yes, that will save us money.
And by the way, we're very proud of our social service department.
As am I.
We should be, because
No one's questioning their value.
Because even,
They
it's
are.
not the
They
state
have
social service
huge
workers that are
resources for that.
providing those
understand that.
kinds
Yes.
of services to the seniors or the single mother or the children. They're not out
I
there.
understand that, and that's why I fought as a legislator
Right.
to make sure they still had the statutory authority to
Right.
act.
And some of them, the social service people that are coming in our community, they're not just servicing them generally, they're trying to bring them up to a higher class
Right.
of middle class or lower middle class, where they become taxpayers
a
and
productive-
contribute to
And
our
a
community.
part of the community
We
that
can't
we're
lose
looking
that.
at.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about you, Bonnie, but I think if we are going to talk about taxes and businesses, we're going to be taking the entire
I know,
hour.
and
I
I
still
think-
get a few
Well,
questions
let me
to ask.
let the public
Okay.
know that they can call in. This is live. If you have specific questions of any of the candidates, please feel free to call 860-885-8532, and we will make sure that they address what
And-
your specific questions
Yes,
are.
and this is Norwich Confidential, so we are live here and we are having a good time here interviewing.
Wait, I mean, it is kind of free. The only one that's
five,
not smiling, you notice,
Republican-
is Jerry.
Oh, Jerry has
you
a good
usually
smirk.
smile better than that.
That's right.
I mean, you have at my home, so, I mean, you
Yeah.
could smile
Well, you're
more.
feeding me there.
That's true. That's true. All I
So-
give you here is water.
So we have, we're in total agreement that in order to increase the tax base, we have to have some people coming in, maybe businesses, maybe residents and so on, like what Johan was saying. So we need to be able to,
It's quite all right.
yeah,
It was kind of funny.
right.
You
But
guys-
Go ahead,
I
Jerry.
want to
Well, let
address.
Jerry, he hasn't been speaking, so
Oh,
I
okay.
wanted to.
All right. Let's hear
Here's-
it.
I find it odd that we're all talking about codes, but yet I'm a master electrician. I work with codes every day. As far as what he said about grandfathering some of them, buildings have codes based on their usage. Okay, we have places of assembly, we have businesses, commercial settings, industrial. They all have their own set of rules and regulations. And
Shall I?
I'll take a break.
Okay.
We'll take a break.
Let's see if we, hi, you're on Norwich Confidential. Pardon? Like what, sir? I'm sorry, they can't hear you. I'm going to repeat that. We are all afraid to say something politically incorrect. Give me an example. "75% of all people on social services don't belong on it." Can I let them speak to that? Okay, go ahead.
May I start?
Please do.
I am not opposed to being politically incorrect, because sometimes the reality is that you have to be. We have become a society of trying to be all things to all people, and it can't be that way. There's a redundancy in the social services between the state, the local. I had a gentleman come to me the other day, and he said to me, I have a friend who was in the airport in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He said, and there was a notice in the San Juan, Puerto Rico airport that said, come to Norwich, Connecticut, social service benefits.
Whoa.
And I have heard that from other people. I've heard it from police officers who come from New York City. And I believe that everybody should have a hand up, but I am not at all in favor of perpetuating this lifestyle of freebies.
Okay. Stacy.
I'm sure you're not.
Okay, Stacy.
Okay, so,
But what I'm trying to say is that
Go ahead.
we can't get anything done because we're all afraid we're going to say the wrong thing. Again, meanwhile, all these people come in here that aren't worthy of being on social services to capitalize on it. And now we got a big mess here, and it's just going to go on and on and on. And eventually the movie The Planet of the Apes is going to be pretty much true.
Okay, thank you very much for your call, sir. All right, go ahead, Stacy.
Well, I don't know where he's coming up with his statistics about 75%.
Right.
And yes, I am sure that there are some people who abuse the system. And there are some people that absolutely need our help. And I have no problem paying or helping out someone who needs our help. But I do have a problem with handing down welfare as a legacy.
Hi, you're on Norwich Confidential. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm watching your program on television, and I'd like to call and also make a comment on your prior call with the social services.
Okay, you're on the air now. Go ahead and
I absolutely agree. I'm born and raised in Norwich, senior citizen, and I also have seen people's correspondence in the paper where they come to Norwich because it's easy to get welfare here. You hear that all the time, and it's getting to be, I believe, a lot of people on social services that don't need to be there. There's a lot of overlapping services in Norwich, and you don't see anywhere else that's given away the monies that Norwich is giving away. And as far as uplifting them to middle class, let them get a job and uplift themselves like the rest of us had to do. I don't think that's our social service department to continue uplifting them.
Okay.
Yes, maybe feed them or something, but this is ridiculous. Norwich is like the social services of Eastern Connecticut. It's ridiculous. They may be doing a good job, that's not the point, but this is tax money. And there's a lot of people, that and SSI. I see many people, 20, 25 years old on SSI for anxiety.
okay. Thank you very much. We'll address those issues.
Norwich
Okay.
definitely needs to address that because you're going to get plenty of our senior citizens that pay our taxes leaving for this same reason.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah. All right, what she was saying was obviously that people, our social services, she understood you to say our social services is uplifting them so that they can become part of the middle class.
Well,
Become
they're-
self-reliant.
Yeah, we want
Yeah,
them to
it is.
become independent.
They offer training,
Absolutely.
They're off,
education
right.
for
We're not
them.
feeding them and making them middle class by giving them money. That is not
That's
what.
not what that's not the point.
Exactly.
that's not
And
the
I
job
think
of social services.
Right, and I think that that's what she was believing. How much has the social service budget increased over the last 10 years, let's say?
I don't have that.
I don't have that.
Peter, do you know? Just during your term, was it increasing?
Actually, there were discussions on reductions of positions
Yeah, there was
at that time, and positions, in fact, were eliminated while I was mayor at times.
Right.
Those aren't easy choices.
Right.
Those are people.
Are
human
tax
beings.
dollars used to give to the people that come into the social service office
They have resources available to help people in an emergency situation.
only?
Their real focus is really driving people to have relationships with other affiliations, whether it be education, whether it be emergency housing, and so forth. Their focus is not on maintaining people on a welfare system. It's
Right.
not. And that's why I believe in them, and I still do. The question is, how much can this city carry when you have a grand list that's growing, when people are losing equity in their homes, when the tax rate is climbing so high that it's probably double of any community adjacent to us, in some cases triple. How do you compete when you want to bring businesses and jobs when you're in that position? You can't. You lose.
I think the miscommunication probably, or misunderstanding probably, is that when we have the social worker take in a person into our system, that the city gives them money or maintain them,
They
but that's not
assess,
the
they
case.
assess the needs.
It's just the
Right,
need of
right.
what they need at that time.
Okay. Hi, you're on Norwich Confidential. You're on the air. Hi.
Well, I just think that we're doomed. There's nothing we're going to be able to do about it. Essentially, what's going to happen in the long haul, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, is that we're going to lose our town, and it'll be government funded, basically like one minute. And there's nothing we can do about it. The law's designed where you can't say nothing because they stack you, they'll arrest you for saying something unpolitical correct. We're doomed. I'm telling you, everybody standing there are sitting on a piano. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to be the test of time. We're going to lose our town. It's going to be like a city and a ghetto, and there's nothing you can do about it. Good night.
Good night, thank you.
I don't believe that at all.
You have to
I
try.
wouldn't have run
I'll
for
fight like
city.
hell
Have to
not to
try.
let that happen.
I would have never put my time and energy into running for city council.
I think with but that caller expresses something that's a frustration by a lot of people in the community. Everybody always says they're going to bring the jobs in, they're going to make economic, make sure that our grand list can grow so that the taxes can go down. It's not going to go down unless we bring those, really have good paying jobs in the community. It's not going to happen.
You also have to fight to retain the companies that are here.
That's
when you
the
let
problem.
them leave, when you do things that obstruct their ability to stay,
Right.
like raising the mill rate, which they have, or not doing or looking at forecast or even working with a company, and I want to pick on anybody, but we had a company, Collins and Jewell, a significant taxpayer in this city. I fought as mayor to keep them here. They asked me to do that themselves. We worked for a year to keep them here. They knew where they wanted to go. We had a landowner at Shipping Street who was willing to accept them, willing to even donate a major heavy piece of equipment to help them relocate down there, because that's a company that's expanding. Today they're in Basra because of pure politics that took place while I was mayor. And that's not doing the job that you're elected to do.
And that basically goes back to my question, are we friendly, a business-friendly city? And I think the majority answered that yes, there may be, but there will be a few that...
But I don't find
there
it
is
to
something
be
that,
business-friendly.
At the same time, you know,
Honestly.
you also have to make sure that you are not giving the keys to your treasury.
Now, we can't just put one business in a downtown location and say, okay, you're going to be successful, thank you very much for coming here.
No,
We
that
have to
isn't-
anchor them with other businesses that are not alike, that are not the same, but now we have a pharmacy, we have a place to get coffee, we have an art studio, we have a tailor, we have a shoe repair.
Right, but at some point, it's fairly easy to attract them because there's such a need in the community for exactly what you're saying. But what happens when somebody comes in, they run across all of these obstacles in getting started.
Right,
It-
but we have programs in place through
I
NCDC.
can tell you that Jason Vincent and Bob Mills will go door to door on behalf of any business interest who wants to come to this city, and they will knock on every single door and break those walls down, get the communication going, do the follow-up. They've done that time and time again. They are doing that to this day, but they're two people. And some of those businesses don't end up staying. Remember the boxing gym that was down city? They jumped through hoops to help get that person open, didn't survive.
But a lot of people that actually live in Norwich that aren't coming from outside the city that would really like to open up, or ones that have already established businesses, like the businesses that are currently downtown. Most of them have been there for over 10 years, in spite of the fact that we have all the storefronts that are social services. But there's very little that encouragement to them.
And some are very successful because when I first opened my establishment, I had been told by another business, I hope you have a lot of friends, because that's all who's going to come. But when we opened the door, I thought, as a person, just me, myself, a general guy, I lived in Norwich for the 30 years I've been living here. My wife and I would go to Mystic, Stonington, other cities to have dinner, to go out and socialize. I felt that if someone just opened something for me to come to, I wouldn't go 40 miles
exactly.
away, 20 miles. When I opened, we had 2-hour waits. I had hoped that I was the beginning of the trend, because if people saw that I was successful and that the business is still successful today, that others would say, well, they're doing it, let's give it a shot.
But your food was really good then, too.
Well,
It was really
I
good.
can only speak for when I was there.
We're almost down to 10 minutes.
We still
which
get
is
a
very-
lot of
which
questions,
is
of
very
course. To
quick,
cover
but-
it in the whole 1 hour is probably not enough time. We really are talking about our community. And in our community, we are not going to be talking only about taxes, finances. We're also talking about safety, place where we can raise our kids. We need to address all those social issues that are also have been identified, either in a positive way or negative way. There's a lot of negative feedback that I have on how the city of Norwich had turned into. So let's talk
With
about those.
the last 10 minutes, if I'm going to give each of you a chance to kind of talk about that, and then go ahead, Joanne.
So we're talking about public safety?
Or whatever
Whatever
issue
that
you
comes
want.
to your
Again, I see us as a fractured community. I've been here 11 years, And people say, you know, it takes time. This didn't happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take time. I have a next door neighbor, a physician, who retired, who has put his house on the market. And he jokingly says, time. He said, and it takes time. He said, I've been waiting 30 years. 30 years. We need, in my opinion, to talk candidly and openly about the issues. Yes, there are a lot of positive things in Norwich, but there are a lot of negative things. I talked to another physician yesterday who said they have their practice here, but they can't wait to retire so that they can go someplace where they can go someplace.
Do they live here?
Yes, they do.
Okay, because you don't have many of the physicians that
Exactly.
work here and actually live in the community.
Right, and
It's
that
very
raises
few.
another question. That is one of my pet peeves. We have so many people, and this includes city employees, who earn their money here and live and spend it someplace else.
Stacy.
Well, as a lifelong resident of Norwich, I can honestly tell you, I have never felt unsafe in Norwich. I love our community. If I didn't, I can pick up and move elsewhere. But we need to bring businesses to Norwich. We need to bring a diversified businesses to Norwich, amenities to Norwich. Why don't we have a movie theater?
Yeah.
Why don't we have a tailor shop, someone who repairs shoes? All of those things help to build a community, keep people in the community. We need to focus
somebody
on
in the
Norwich
community.
being in a positive light, not in a negative way. There's so much negative publicity about Norwich. Oh, poor Norwich, poor Norwich. Let's talk about what's great about Norwich.
Right.
We have a wonderfully diverse community that loves to come together for festivals, all kinds of, you can go have food, you can have drink, you have music. We have great things at the Howard Brown Park.
Theaters, we have 2 theaters.
We have 2 theaters here that I don't think enough people avail themselves to. We have a lot of things to offer. We have to support our schools. We have to support our police. We have to support our fire departments. But we also need to have a stronger volunteer corps. Get volunteers involved in a project. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You have a lot of results.
Like Rotary.
Right.
Jerry?
You need to change the demographics of the town, plain and simple. Right now, 80% of the kids that go to school are on paid lunch. They're below the poverty level. You know, there's no disposable income. Even if a business does locate here, who's going to support it unless they attract money from out of town? It's a real obstacle for that because we're dead for dollars, basically, for lack of a better word.
When you look at where the employment is, Walmart's, the services, the
Doesn't pay the
fast
rent.
food,
Yeah.
no,
Doesn't
even
pay the
the
rent.
casino, it doesn't pay
It
the
doesn't pay
rent.
the rent. Like I said, the company and I work for, Pratt & Whitney, we're tripling our output. Tripling our output because of the new generation of jet engines we're producing. At 56 years of age, I'm one of the young guys at work, believe it or not.
Really?
I am. Most of the guys that cut chips, so to speak, or weld or maintain facilities like myself, they're all just about ready to retire. These are really great paying jobs,
Yeah.
you know?
We need them in Norwich.
And it needs to change. The thing is, we have to train the people for these skills that are here now. Because I'm tired of seeing engineers coming from abroad when we have these jobs right here. Why
Why
can't
don't
we
you go ahead and answer that?
cultivate engineers right here in America?
We only have about 5 minutes left. Bill, we'll let you talk
Oh,
then.
you get the,
Hi, okay, you're on the air, you have just a minute, please.
Thank you very much, everybody on the panel. And I know you're doing a good job. But here's what's happening, okay? There's 2 problems. And that is social services and taxes. Now, who's going to live in Norwich? Eventually, where are the taxes going to come from? Because everybody's moving out of Norwich. It's homes that they can sell them, businesses.
Okay.
Eventually, who's going to be paying the taxes? There's nobody even owning any homes in Norwich eventually. Because everybody wants out. They can't sell their house.
Okay.
And then
We're running out
We're
of time,
running out of time,
unfortunately.
sir.
So we'll
Okay.
just let
Let them finish then, thank you.
because we have 2 incumbent or had
Go
been.
ahead.
well, I wanted to talk about when I was on the police department, they dropped the, well, originally got hired, they had to have, you had to have a living residential requirement. And when they dropped it, there were a lot of officers that left. City employees in general, I chose to stay here because I love the community, I love patrolling the community, I loved working with the people in the community. Norwich is safe. There are some surrounding towns to us that actually made the national top 10 of the most dangerous cities to live in. And I'm talking ones literally nearly next to us, maybe a town away. So, I mean, Norwich is safe. I have great confidence in the police department. Our citizens are good people, conscientious, and that's why I want to serve again. I want to serve those people. I want to protect that heritage and keep it going. Yeah, we're in a dip. We're in a bad dip, and we need to get out of it. And I think with the team, I think we can get out and push and get this thing rolling.
And let me thank you for your services, by the way,
Oh,
Bill.
thank you.
And
You're
for you
welcome.
to be
It's been a pleasure the
trying to
entire
go back,
time.
and especially with Peter, and he's trying to go back and getting all those bad phone calls. So, Peter, what do you have to say?
You've got a minute, Peter.
Comes down to priorities.
Yes.
The priorities have to change. We want people to move into this community. Council has to work closely with the Board of Education and make sure the resources are there for the education of children. If our schools continue to be ranked as they are, it's a detriment to moving families into this city, and it's a detriment to causing people to leave this city. It also affects businesses when they look at an interesting area to move into. If the schools are strong, businesses look at a community more favorably. If the tax rate is lower, businesses look at a community more favorably. We have to get there. This group is willing to make those hard decisions, and it's not going to be pretty.
Okay.
It isn't supposed to be. Hard
Talking-
work never is.
Talking about hard decisions, Peter's aware of the Norwich Anti-Corruption Resolution. This has been, I did send copies of this to every single current council member, including the mayor. It has already gone through Corporation Council. It is legal. And I let all of you have copies of the Norwich Anti-Corruption Resolution. If any of you have any comments, I would love to
Yes.
hear them now.
Otherwise, we are all done for the night.
But they have, we have about 4 minutes, so
no,
I...
we're done.
No, we're not.
So it's
We have 4 minutes.
and
Walking it
All right,
Yeah.
I will trust him to
so
tell me that.
good night,
so
and we'll see you next week.
we'll see you next week with the Democratic candidates for Norwich City Council. This is Norwich Confidential. Good night.
And we want to thank you.